Good afternoon and welcome to Patrick's Models and Transports. So now we'll have a look at the finished job on the BR55, the Piko BR55 or Prussian Railways locomotive, 080 locomotive in Belgian State Railway livery that we had a look at in the previous video. As just to recap a few things. This is this BR55 or Prussian, on the origin it was the Prussian class G 8.1 080, is in Belgian livery because after the Great War a number of these locomotives were handed over to Belgium as war reparations. And so what was the problem? The problem was that we have changed the filming angle this time. This pipework had broken off because handling the locomotive, taking the body off. I bought this locomotive second hand this summer in a train pack, which we will eventually have a look at the whole train pack in another video, presentation video. Anyway, this pipework here had broken off. It was very flimsy. I had glued it on again using a spot of Tamiya cement, but it kept coming dislodged and eventually it just came off. So what I did, I glued it onto a small strip of transparent plastic. Let's see if maybe we can see. I might even add a spot of light in this video to increase the illumination. There we go. I glued it onto a strip of transparent plastic, modeling plastic for making windows and things on models, and I glued it on. I trimmed that very carefully so that you can see, so that it's not visible, and then I even sort of applied a spot of matte black marker pen to the sides to make it even less visible. Then I glued that onto the inside wall of the locomotive cab using glue and glaze specific glue which was used for transparent plastic, which is very good because it glues to all surfaces, and it also glues painted parts. You can glue metal onto plastic. It's a very, very good glue. I'll just give you a quick look at it now. Just let me put that down a second. This is the glue. This is an excellent product. Deluxe Materials Glue and Glaze. This is fantastic. I've been using this year for the last year on various projects. I bought it to fit the canopy to a model plane, but I've been using it for all sorts of things, of glued glass, of glued metal, and all sorts of things. So that's that. I'm going to put that out the road. Anyway, this is our body, and we'll just fit it back onto the locomotive. Another word on the locomotive. Here's the chassis. This is the weight. There's one weight. This is a very good weight, this locomotive. It's an excellent. It has an excellent traction. The only thing we could say, this is an old East German model. The 3-pole motor is quite noisy. What's actually noisy is not so much the motor, but this gearing system. Because like many locomotives, even the Fleischmann's, the gear system transmits motion to all 4 axles. So the connecting rods are purely aesthetical. But this is good in one way because the connecting rods can be quite thin and quite rather realistic. The electrical pickups, it picks up from all four axles. You can see there are wiper pickups behind the wheels which come in contact with the steel tires. The center of the wheels is made in plastic, and this is an excellent locomotive. It doesn't stall on points. Very good traction. Very good puller. It's a very good puller. There are traction tires on the rearmost axle. It also has pickups on the rearmost axle because we have to think that the flanges are in contact with the rails. And this is a very good design. Here we see these coils, these 2 coils here. Their function is to, one here and one here. These act as interference suppressors. So if you're running this locomotive and you're listening to the radio in the same room or watching TV, you have no interference. With some DC motors, there can be problems of interference. You'll start hearing the radio crackling and things like that. So that's that. That's enough about the locomotive. We can give the tender a mention, so it picks up only on the locomotive. It doesn't pick up on a tender. It doesn't really need the extra complication of picking up on a tender because it has excellent conductivity from the 4 axles of the locomotive. The tender is also quite heavy, so it doesn't derail on points when going in reverse, and it's a very good design. This locomotive is still in production by Piko. As I said before, this is an old 1980s model made in East Germany, when East Germany was there were still the 2 Germanys before the fall of the wall. Nowadays, this locomotive has tender drive. The motor is in the tender, which gives a more realistic cab because, of course, there's no motor in the cab. As I said in previous video, and I'll probably repeat throughout the videos, I like my locomotives with the drive in the locomotive. It's more realistic, and I just like it. There can be a spot of wheel slip, and it's just my taste is to have the traction in the locomotive and the drive in the locomotive. So nowadays, same locomotive, same casting, same everything, but drive in the tender. Okay. So now we'll quickly reassemble this, and that way we can wrap it up. I'm doing this single-handed today because I'm keeping an eye on the filming, and that just sits in there, the weight. When reassembling, it's a very good idea to make sure that the front hook is in the down position, not up here, otherwise then you'll put the body on and it won't fit. So pop the weight in position. There we go, the lead weight. And then take the body of the locomotive. It's very simple. You just sit that in position right there, drops into place, catches at the front there, nice and precise. Hold it down and just screw it down in position. There's a single slotted head screw here in the dome. There, it's caught thread, and now it's just going to screw down, and our locomotive is ready for action. So there we are, not too tight, but tight enough. There we go. That's the class G8.1 or BR55 080 tender locomotive ready to go back on the layout. And we'll just, the tender hitches up. Very simple. There's a hook at the back. There's a hook there at the back. The motor, the cab is in the motor, but once the tender hooks up quite close. It's got a quite close. There you go. You don't really see it. It's not really very visible, huh? And as I say, I like my locomotives to be loco driven. And once the locomotive is going round and round, and you're playing with it, because this is play value. That's the important thing for me on a model train. Okay, so we can sit that out the road and just leave it there, waiting to go back onto the layout. Another thing I did yesterday was I had a look. Why am I saying another thing I did yesterday? Because yesterday evening I did a video, and then I had a technical problem with the phone. Probably that there was too many things in the telephone. The memory was overloaded, and at one point, 3/4 through the video, I was explaining about this wagon, and it kept on recording my voice, but it stopped. The video stopped. My hand sort of froze like that, frozen mid-air. So I said, right, I'll just film this again, trying to keep things short and not wasting too much time. So this is a small Lima wagon, goods wagon I bought, and it depicts a typical Italian goods wagon of the early 1900s, end of the 1800s. These type of goods wagons with a sloping roof remained in service right into the 1980s. I remember seeing them on goods trains when I was a kid, and it's a very simple model, very simple. It's nothing special. It doesn't have any opening doors, and you can't even open it. It's riveted together. See, it had a problem that one wheel, the one axle was very smooth running. The other one was touching the chassis. So I measured the caliper, and what was the problem? The gauging was incorrect. It was too wide. it was 15 millimeters instead of being, say, more or less 14 millimeters and a half. I'm giving a rough calculation now, no? And it was touching the axle boxes, it was scraping on the suspension, and it wasn't going well. So what I did, and this is where I'm just going to tell you what I did now and show you what I used. I re-gauged it, pulling it manually, and then, because what happened in this case here, I think this, generally Lima axles don't lose their gauge. It's a very good quality. Jouef axles, the metal ones in particular, may tend to lose their gauge once you lubricate the axle boxes. Oil goes in, seeps in, and then they move. So if such a thing happens, if I have to re-gauge an axle, you can see here there's a plastic bush, there's some crimping on the axle, and when this was assembled it was maybe not well centered and it tended to slide out the way. So I pushed it back in, I compared it to the other axle to get it as close as possible to the other axle's gauging, and then I applied a spot of this product, which is thread sealant. You use this here, Loctite. It's used for threaded for screw threads and for fixing bearings, sealing connectors and things like this. And it's a very good product. It's in a plastic bottle. You can have it. I'll just show you how it is. Probably red bottle made by Loctite. There we go. I actually have some in a little jar because on one occasion the nozzle was slightly bunged up and I pushed and too much came out, and this is expensive stuff, so I managed to salvage it and scoop it all back into this jar. It's sealed, it's still very good, so I just applied it to the axle using a piece of wire, bent, an open paper clip, and so this is ready for going back on the wagon. Last night I also lubricated the axle boxes. I've been thinking, so I lubricate axle boxes in two ways. The standard way is a tiny spot of, this is another jar of mine, it's called loco oil. It's sewing machine oil, because I just keep it in this jar. I go in with a piece of wire and I pick it up and I put a tiny drop directly on the part that has to be oiled. I think this is enough. Sooner or later I'll get an oiling pen as well, but I find this system very practical. The other technique you can use is to use some pencil lead, and yesterday, and I can even repeat the operation now, this is a 5B pencil. It's the stub of a pencil, soft leaded pencil, and I use this to lubricate axle boxes, because graphite is an excellent lubricant. It's very, very slippery, and you just take your pencil, I've already done this axle, and you rub it in there to make sure there's plenty of graphite or pencil lead in there, you see, and that makes a good smooth surface for the axle to run in. And I'm going to test this. This is what I used to always use when I was a kid. Nowadays I also put some sewing machine oil. Sewing machine oil doesn't damage plastic, so it's okay. As even many other YouTubers will tell you, use on model trains you can use petroleum jelly based grease. I use plenty of that. That's also guarantees electrical conductivity, so that's excellent for axles, and a mix of sewing machine oil and the silicone or petroleum jelly, technical petroleum jelly grease is very good also to lubricate motor bearings, because if it goes on the bushes it doesn't cause problems, and it doesn't damage plastic, it doesn't gunk up, and it's long lasting and does a very good job. This locomotive, in another video I told you that I had lubricated all the gears with that, and it doesn't spatter all over the place like oil. That's another thing. So in axle boxes It depends on the wagon. On these ones, this kind of metal on plastic, pencil lead is sufficient, or a spot of oil. It depends. And if there are metal on metal bearings, I tend to use oil or a mix of grease and oil. So I'll just pop this back in, and this should be more than enough. I'll move over and use two hands because maybe that might be a better idea. Another very useful tool to have, there we go, we'll just stick this one in. I don't want to push on the wheel. Okay, that's ready. Another tool, very useful tool when working with model trains, in particular old stuff, because generally plastic can get brittle in time, is not to go bending out axle boxes using a screwdriver. Screwdriver's made of metal, things will snap off. Small lever. This is from a screwdriver kit, a multi-bit screwdriver kit, which I have. Very useful tool. It might get it in a picture, this thing here. There's all sorts of levers. They're good for opening mobile phones, tweezers and the like, and here's all the various bits, magnetizer, demagnetizer, etc, etc. So take this lever, just go in there on the axle box and gently lever it out. Just very gently lever it out and drop the axle in the wheel in position. Let's see. I've done it a million times and that's about to go in. There, perfect. And now our axle is back in position. It spins quite well. Still has a tendency to rub because this is an absolute let's see. This is still rubbing a bit. This has really decided to annoy me. Anyway, so it's still rubbing, so let's try and cure it with, it was working perfectly okay. This is still misbehaving, so we'll just take it out again and try and get it fixed. Push it further in a bit. See how that is. 1.4 and a half. I think we're just going to put some oil in here because when things don't want to collaborate, take a spot of oil, put it in the axle box, like so. This is something that you can repeat every now and again on your rolling stock. Just add a spot of oil in there. There seems to be a bit of hair on this. Oops. Bit of hair on there. That's not good. So just a spot of oil, tiny drop. Here we go. Pop a drop. Drop in there. And a drop in here. And that's ready. Let's check this axle again to see its gauging. Ah, 14 and a half. Perfect. Okay, so we'll just put this in here and pop it in. This is quite flexible, so I can even use my fingernail to sort of get it in position. And it's running a bit better. Definitely better than what it was. Let's test it on a length of rail. Because when I got it, it was really very, very stiff. Let's see how it is. It still tends to bind. This is another. We're going to have understand. This might need more attention. It's still sticking somewhere. Might actually need maybe some filing. Let's have a look to understand what's going on. Ah, okay. Understood. You can see that it's touching, this is touching one of the brakes. And I think it's touching one of the brakes. This brake, it's actually coming in contact with this brake shoe. This brake shoe. So what we'll do, we'll take it out and we'll just file the brake shoe down. And that way we'll have solved the problem, hopefully once and for all. Okay, so we've seen the problem. A bit too much oil in here now. So let's take this boy, let's go and lever out the road. Let's go and take it off, not on the side of the wheel with the bush. So we know that this axle, I think the problem here is a problem caused by bad mold, bad injection mold, a defect in the injection mold of the chassis. So probably, let's just lever that out. A bit too much oil in here, let's just dry it up. A gallon of oil, it's never good to put too much oil on things. Okay, so we'll dry up the excess oil. So that's a problem. Okay, and we said that this brake shoe here is the culprit. So we just get a file and we'll file it down. I'll give it we'll just file that down so that it stops touching the tire of the wheel. Okay. I think that might be better. Give it a clean with, just wipe it a bit with a cotton bud, and let's see if that's any better. If not, I will just do a very barbaric thing and sort of pull it out the way a bit. That way we know that it's further out, it's not in the road. Okay, let's check. Take the wheel, pop the wheel back in. Let's use a little lever to lever this out. I hope I'm not covering things with my hands. And let's just pop this man back in. Come on, Jimmy, on we go. Perfect. And there we go. Nice and smooth running. Super smooth. It doesn't touch anymore. Filed it back, bent it out a bit. In fact, it's, let's see who goes faster. The one lubricated with oil or the one with the pencil lead. They're nearly at the same, performing in the same way. And that's it. Ready to go on the track. Make sure, very important to make sure that there's no oil on the actual wheels, because then you'll get oil on the rails, and if there's oil on the rails, then you'll go and interfere with the conductivity of the locomotive wheels. So never any oil on the wheels. On the wheels, there must be no oil on the rails. So any oil that's over there on the chassis is not going to drip down, it's just there. Okay, so let's see it. Let's test it on the rail. Oh, super smooth runner. Okay, perfect. That's very good. Okay, very well. So that's all for the moment, and if you're interested in what I'm getting on to, what I'm getting on with on this channel, and you can subscribe to the channel, and even click the notification bells. Do a like to the video, of course, and click the notification bell so that you'll be updated on further videos. The next video will be a presentation of this locomotive, since we've been working on this one, maybe with a short train on the layout. And now I'm going to actually go and tidy up the layout because it's a bit of a mess, because I've been doing jobs on things, and this way it will be a little bit more presentable to to run some drains and have a look at things. Okay, so for the moment, it's cheerio from me, and see you next time. Ciao, ciao.